Welcome to the ABQ Accent, where catalysts, innovators, and risk takers share what their accent is on their work. Like a spoken accent, we all have an inflection or emphasis on where we put our energy. Join us to learn how these folks are putting their accents to work, building their vision of the future, and how you can get involved. Welcome. I'm Mariah Harrison with the ABQ Accent, and I'm here with Linley Daly. Hello, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I'm going to go into a little bit of your bio, and then we'll just dive in and see where the road takes us today.
Great.
Okay. I am very pleased to have Linley Daly on today, founder of Daly Consulting, a bespoke coaching business. She is ICF professional certified and considers herself a relentless optimist for positive change. I think more of us should be like that. Linley is a business strategist and executive coach, leadership coach. She is an intuitive, if you will, I'm using that as an adjective, a catalyst, and an expert in turning complexity into clarity. She has anywhere between 25 to 30 clients annually, which is incredibly impressive. And with over 30 years of navigating both nonprofit and for-profit innovations, turning uncertainty into opportunity and vision into action, Linley is building cultures where people want to work. She's moving away from the scarcity mindset and rather focusing on genius and tapping into courage and purpose. Thank you so much for being here.
It's so good to spend some time with you, Mariah.
You too. And some of what I mentioned about this is visionary language, and it is creative, and it is soulful. And I want to honor that about your work. And what I see as your approach is that you are not focused on the strategies as how they look on paper, but how they make people feel. Does that?
Yeah, I think that gets to the soul of the work. And it is really about how do we work in the environments we exist in, especially right now when chaos and volatility and uncertainty seem to rule, especially in the social sector, but even in the corporates, in the clients that I get to work with in the corporate stage, and and certainly in the government stage, depending on the work that you do. We're seeing a lot of that. And so when we build strategies out, they have to resonate with core values, and they have to resonate with vision. And here's the secret about values and vision and mission, and that when you combine mission, what you do, who you do it for, and for what impact, and you marry that with values, you get culture.
Right.
And so core strategic planning has to be aligned with the North Star of vision, mission, and values, which is your culture, in order to get anything done.
But it's a chosen culture. It's something you create intentionally.
Certainly in my body.
Yeah.
And I hope and help others do that for themselves if they're on board. Yeah. Not everybody plays that dance, which is fine. They're at choice. I think it might be sometimes a little bit more complex to do so in a corporate space. I find that my nonprofit clients tend to be very much aligned with the philosophy because they're rooted in vision, mission, and values.
Yeah. Well, tell me where your roots come from. I'm interested more right now at the beginning into what brought you to this work. I may have overheard that you graduated from Pius, and I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, I'm a multi-generational New Mexican, and I'm very proud to be a New Mexican. Yeah. This community raised me, and I feel it is one of my many reasons for contributing to the degree I do, to be engaged and work with the folks that I work with that are here in Albuquerque and throughout the state. I do work beyond the state, but my heart is here. My mountains are here.
Right.
And so my doing this work originated probably in university when I was at the University of Arizona. There's a couple elements there. I was a collegiate athlete. And so teamwork, determination, commitment, collaboration is all rooted in that. Also juggling many balls. So that was also part of the equation because you spend quite a few hours in a gym and in training, and then turn around and spend quite a few hours doing your homework. So I honor all the student athletes out there.
Tenacity.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely. And then the second piece of that is I was so curious about politics, about policy, and the opportunity to change communities through policy. And so I was a political science major. I did lots of lots of internships, city, state, and federal internships. Loved that experience, but it also taught me where I didn't want to be.
There you go.
Yeah, and this was when dirt was new. And the politic wasn't quite as vicious as I perceive it to be today. And still it was rough. And so I chose to step out of that arena and wasn't really sure where I was going. My last internship was with the state of Arizona legislature, and I was on a nonpartisan committee working with judiciary, and great experience. But all my colleagues were going to law school, which wasn't really my path. So I was hired or recruited out of college to go work for a corporate for Hallmark Cards. And while a great experience, I thought I landed and I was going to spend 30 years there, it turned out that was not so true. And it was ink on paper, which can make people feel good, but for the short term, it doesn't change lives and it doesn't impact communities. And so I had to find a different way. So when my husband and I moved back here in 30 years ago, I had just had our first child and needed to get out of the house. So I went back to St. Pius. They had a director of development position. And I thought, sure, this is totally my jam. I could be a director. My husband tells me I'm really good at it. I could do development. Had no idea it was really fundraising. Had an inkling, but really was not really informed. And I developed things. And I know it, and I'm alum, so perfect fit.
At the basic, yeah.
So I came in second out of two. And however, the executive director of the foundation at that time introduced me to my future boss at an AFP luncheon, and the rest is history. I fell into the sector. I ended up working for I've worked for a couple foundations. I've worked boots on the ground. And that was where I found I could really make impact, was in the social sector. It was so satisfying.
Yeah. Well, and that, I would say, catapulted you into so many other amazing, incredible projects that you continue to have a perspective of evolution. You see what's needed, and you sort of help people find their way into opportunities and solutions. But let's talk a little bit more about what the sector of the nonprofit world was for you and continues to be. You were talking about uncertainty, some challenges. What did it look like then when you were focusing on fundraising? And I should note here that you were named Outstanding Fundraiser of the Year by the Association of Fundraising Professionals, and at one point you were chair. So talk to me about what that experience was like.
Yeah, well, the Association of Fundraising Professionals was instrumental in my professional development. I cut my teeth. They provided tons of resources in my early career and have been a real phenomenal resource. And I was proud to be able to be in leadership many, many years, both on a local, state level, but also on a national level. I served in several committees nationally. And they ended up being an international organization. They were evolving, and so it was technically international as well. I learned a lot, all my fundraising skills out of that, but I also learned the impact that fundraising and relationship building really had. And I think that's what's enhanced where I am today, is it's all relational. So back in the day, again, when dirt was new, the sector was a little tighter. There were right and wrong ways to do things. I was really more concerned about not just paying my salary, but the salary of everybody I was raising money for, and also the programming. And that's a lot of stress to carry. So, I was constantly engaging with humans, telling really powerful stories, which is that is the vehicle for all fundraising, is telling the powerful stories. And I knew I was doing good work. I also knew that the stress of carrying such heavy responsibility was not particularly healthy. And so I would find myself in complete compassion fatigue and burnout. And about every 3 years, I would have to navigate to a break and then to a new endeavor. Also, during that time, I also had a full-time job of raising kids, which was very cool, and also a full-time job on top of a full-time job. In fundraising, we know that the work doesn't end. The engagement, the humans that you come in contact with, the stories you tell, the events and activities go long after work hours, and sometimes start early in the morning. It wasn't really conducive to my work life. And so I chose to create my own business in 2015, and have the best boss I've ever met. She totally gets me. Right.
Communicator, she's present.
Well, I hope so. Sometimes she's a little harsh. And it allowed me to be kind of a lifestyle entrepreneur in creating what I needed for my family and for my career. And I have never looked back. Yeah.
Right.
I'm in my 11th year. Yeah. It's great.
It is great.
Yeah, I know. And I'm making a living, so which is kind of cool. I'm paying my bills and it's pretty phenomenal. And I continue to serve in a way that doesn't burn me out, which is super important because I get to work with the extraordinary mission-driven leaders that are facing burnout, that are facing tough decisions, that are facing, I think, a climate that we haven't seen before, where so many, all sectors are under attack, but in particular, I think the social sector, which is, again, my opinion, that the social fabric of communities, whether you're in an LA or you're in an Albuquerque or you're in, small town in Idaho.
Absolutely.
The social fabric is absolutely critical for helping residents survive. And that's why I do this work. Leaders carry a lot of the burden and it often feels very lonely.
Yeah.
And one of the projects, in fact, I was sitting with this morning is a forum of extraordinary mission-driven leaders that are doing the hard work and in it thick. Some have lost federal funding. Some have, to a large degree, to a modest degree. Some are very concerned about the Medicaid cuts in the bill that passed the Senate. So, they're all dancing in a way with uncertainty, not knowing how this is going to impact their world. And I think there's some opportunity here too, as things begin to deconstruct. How do we reconstruct them in a way that actually works for our communities?
That's one of the things that was most energizing for me when we spoke a few weeks ago about your perspective on why there should be more of a tri-sector approach to our challenges right now, because so much of it is overlapping, and instead of working in our silos, things could be accomplished more quickly and maybe more efficiently for the people that need it if that happened. Can you describe what your perspective is on that approach?
Yeah, I think if we really want sustainable change and addressing some of the biggest challenges communities have, it's not one-sided. Right. The city municipalities can't just fix.
Or just nonprofits.
Or just nonprofits or state governments, and not even the federal government.
Clearly.
Right. But together we can solve for ourselves. Together we can come up with solutions and access each other's expertise. Because some of this work that the social sector invests in and has been spent lifetimes in are true solutions. And there's a 360 perspective that other sectors don't always have. That's and understanding what municipalities can offer and county systems can offer. Also brings a whole new flavor to dialogue and to problem solving. And so, and then corporates, I get to work at the intersection of corporate innovation and nonprofit passion. Yeah. And that magic right there is pretty special. And so when we can dialogue together and not shut each other down, but stay in the messy, I think there's lots of fruitful outcomes. I mean, a perfect example in this community is the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. You've got native governance, you've got enterprise, for-profit enterprise, and you've got nonprofit support systems all wrapped around a whole community in a space in our city that is doing extraordinary work. Shout out to Mike Camfield and the work he and his team have done over the years. It's brilliant. And
it's centrally located and accessible, and I love that you're amplifying that they're already doing that from that perspective, and for maybe initially for a particular population, but in the scheme of their work, all of us are benefiting from the way they look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's come up with some more examples. What does this look like for dialogue?
Well, the scarcity part of me is starting to eke out. I often think that the social sector is left out of the conversation. I attend lots of community engagement spaces. I'll go to an economic forum, or I'll listen in on some town halls and try to figure out, what are the biggest issues that leaders are grappling with. Yep. And they're all relevant, and they're all big, and they're very complex. And so, just saying we need some tri-sector engagement, it isn't going to solve it. But it does, in dialogue and accessing all the genius that comes from all three sectors, is really where it sits. So, I think we have to have a seat at the table. I think you have had Sephora on, and that's kind of what Thrives is trying to do, is create a seat for the social sector to sit at the table. And the social sector is comprised of two interesting entities. It's comprised of philanthropy, which are our funders, and it's comprised of the nonprofits that are boots on the ground, not just in human services, but in education and healthcare and many other sectors, arts and culture and history and all the things that make for beautiful communities. And the loss of that is going to be keenly felt if we continue to not have a seat at the table.
That's sort of the language I was thinking about using, is that so many of those other voices are amplified, but the social sector and nonprofits are constantly, in some way or another, saying, not so much what about us, but you know what, we'll do our own thing if we have to. And I don't love the idea of that separation, of the invisible line being drawn because there hasn't been enough room or enough time or enough energy or who knows what. And I think what you're saying right now about how acutely we will be feeling these cuts, not just from the federal government's latest bill, but active attacks on individual types of nonprofits, individual groups of vulnerable populations. And so therefore, because our neighbors and our family and our elders and our youth are all going to be affected in one way or another. Yesterday was the time to start doing this, but here we are today.
Right.
How can we encourage this movement forward? I totally agree.
Yeah. It's really complex because it's moving the Titanic. It doesn't happen just after one conversation. It is constant dialogue because the environments change, the resources change, administrations change. And so it is a constant dialogue that we constantly have to have. And yet I've also seen some really lovely dialogue that some of our city officials have been able to engage with and that have created incredible partnerships and funding options and resource options for some of the critical nonprofits that just do extraordinary work. So I'm not saying that it's not available. We just need more of it. And sometimes it's just one or two of the triad, right? And I'm suggesting that all three need to be there because when corporates have healthy employees, they thrive. When nonprofits can continue to provide wraparound services for folks, people stay employed, and then you have a great workforce. And when government can support through either resources, funding, or access, I actually think all three of those really can answer the critical questions we have.
I hope everybody listening today is taking notes on what their role could be in any of those sectors, bringing those voices together, because it's not just you and I. And it's not just the other. It's Tipora is an advocate, Groundworks is an advocate, even the grant plant, et cetera. Anybody that works for that sector, my boss's boss's boss, you know what I mean? But I think in a sense, we all have a role to play to bring work like this together because some people don't even really think about it too hard. They just go to volunteer at a place or they go to their job or they complete a contract or a grant management process. But their role is all part of the puzzle. I don't think we're cogs. I don't think that we're just staff members, but we're a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, we're all interconnected.
And the other thing I want to mention is that I think we spoke about before, nonprofits can play a bigger role in advocating for themselves and understanding what it's like to advocate, do advocacy work, do work with the legislature, whether or not they're a 501c4 or 5 or whatnot that allows for that. But I'd like to see more of that activity, even in the next coming session. There's so much we can do in the next 6 months to promote that work.
Yeah, some of my nonprofit clients, if I think about them, I have 7 right now, probably have one more. But I have 7 right now that I work specifically with. All of them are engaged in the legislature, whether it's in food scarcity or it's in access or it's in equity conversations or people with disabilities or children with disabilities. They're doing extraordinary homelessness. They're doing extraordinary work on the policy side. So they're pretty well versed and they still need the support. So the invitation here, I think, is for nonprofits to not ignore the advocacy component that you have. Your voice is incredibly important, especially in this moment.
That's right.
Especially in this moment. Whether it's through an organization like Thrive or whether it's through the National Nonprofit Council,
Right.
The voice is really important. We have a delegation that votes pretty on brand, and so that's consistent, but there's lots of delegations out there that don't. And so whether we can change the nature of policy in our state or beyond, we all are at choice.
Yeah.
And I think the opportunity is to look at where you can stand for your constituency as a nonprofit. Your voice matters. And there's a lot of experts in the community that can support that if you want to learn where to begin.
That's right. And I hearkening back to what you said earlier about why the stories matter. We want to know what's going on in each other's lives, but we also need to find the avenue to share our own or others.
Right. We have some of the best stories on the planet. I mean, how do we talk about lives changed, dogs saved, communities reinforced, art created, kids safe? People housed. And some of my favorite stories come out of the housing space, of when you take away the fear, actual terror of the insecurity of having a roof over your head. Families can do amazing things. They can get educated. They can find good work. They can redesign their parenting skills. They can be fiscally responsible. When you take away the big stressor, and then even in doing that, sometimes you end generational homelessness. And not just homelessness, but it's mental health.
Cycles.
And there's so many cycles.
Yeah.
Poverty, in my opinion, is at the root of a lot of this. And so how do we change the conversation on poverty?
Yeah.
Which is
I don't know that
a
it's
big
an
one.
opinion. I think it's a fact.
Well, right.
Right. And I think people listening, I hope, can also see why you were recognized as 2020 one of the women of influence here. Because you think in larger systems. You think about who's affected at the end of the day. And at the same time, I want to also acknowledge, I would say effort, but I think it comes naturally. The presence you bring to the moment. And that you're setting an example for other people, whether they're in leadership positions or not, around you. The energy is about where are we right now? What can we do together? And then how can that affect the larger population? I'm just big old loved right now. I'm feeling
Thank you.
that about you.
Yeah, thank you.
We already don't have a lot of time left. So I would love to dive a little bit more deeply into what's driving your light these days, what's driving your energy. I'm inspired by the fact that you're a part of a global forum of leaders and coaches, and that you're leading the leaders, coaching the coaches. The effort that you're putting into this women's educational forum, leadership forum. Thank you. You'll fix me. And anything else really, because I know that you put a lot of energy and creativity into that. And then maybe a little bit more about what you're doing on the quieter side and the personal side to ground yourself.
Really big questions, Mariah. What's driving me right now are female leaders. I think I wrote an article on this a couple weeks ago. I am really impassioned with the mission-driven female leaders because I think it's our turn to stand up and stand out, use our voices, and take the genius that we've had when we've been sitting back and observing, or when we've been leading and having to push through barriers. Yeah. I really believe that our women leaders it's our turn. It's our time. And so pulling together extraordinary leaders, which I'm doing in my Women's Leadership Forum, it's actually just nonprofit leadership forum, 7 leaders, all of them women, doing extraordinary work, leading teams of their employees, making really hard decisions. Some are contracting because their funding is contracted and they've had to restructure. Some of them are making very complex decisions on staffing, making very complex decisions on who they serve and how they realign with what their mission is now, as opposed to what it might have been 5 years ago. And I kind of feel like it's ever changing, but there's something there, right? Is how do we encourage and align and challenge today's female leaders to have a bigger view? Because we know the problems. We see it in our families. We see it in our communities. We're very in touch because we feel it big. It hits our children. It hits our nieces and nephews. It affects our neighbors. It affects the people that move out of our neighborhoods. It affects where we put our businesses, right? It affects everything. And I think we're paying attention to that. And so my opportunity is to challenge other women to see a bigger picture and where they can have deeper impact. And my currency is impact. It's not necessarily revenue.
Say it again.
My currency is impact.
That's right.
I mean, I do some pretty cool things with lots of really extraordinary humans.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the metric is impact. What kind of impact are you having? Am I having? And how are we changing the world? One leader, one community, one neighbor at a time in a way that is positive and long lasting.
That's really beautiful.
So that systems change, I think, is going to start with women.
Well, and to reiterate something you said the other day was, for yourself and others, stop playing small.
Yeah, so true.
I'll take that to heart too.
Yeah. Yeah, we're being asked a lot. A lot is being asked of us. Let me reframe that. Yeah, a lot is being asked of us. So let's show up.
Right.
And show up in community.
Yeah.
This isn't just a one-person dealio. I mean, I can facilitate and I can argue and I can pose some really big questions, but it takes the genius in the room, which means we have to have a lot of geniuses in the room to solve some of these really critical conversations.
Encourage people to show up, like you said, even in the messiness.
Yeah. And the messiness is hard to stay in, but therein lies the opportunity is stay in the messy just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you are reflecting on your work and you have time to yourself and your husband and your family life, what are you doing to decompress lately? What do you love to do in Albuquerque?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I love to hike. I love the sunrises and the sunsets, and I love I'm not a fan of the wind, but when the dirt blows through, it gives us some really sweet sunrises and sunsets. So hiking is my jam. I as an athlete, an ongoing athlete, I try to stay healthy. So movement is part of our ethos. My husband/boyfriend, same person.
Yeah.
I have to clarify. My husband of 33 years and I travel is a way to find relief. And sometimes it affords us the opportunity to unplug, which is really important. And then I have a pretty robust meditation practice and centering practice. And that's where I start my mornings, is really grounding myself with my feet in the dirt or on the grass or on the cement, right? Just to remember that I'm here for such a short time and there's a lot of really important work to be done. And hopefully I have enough energy to do my part and encourage others to do theirs.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to leave us with today?
Oh, we don't have to be a big movement. It doesn't take, all of our bodies and minds and souls to make a change. It's one small action after another in collaboration with another small action, in collaboration with another small action. And it starts with dialogue. It starts with proximity. It starts with us getting face to face and having conversation about our real challenges and who are the experts in the room to help us solve that. And so I would invite us to get in proximity with each other.
Okay. That means we get another coffee date at least.
Oh, yes, please.
And I would encourage people who think they are vibing with this to reach out to you.
Oh, absolutely.
For all kinds of reasons. Dailyconsulting.org.
Yep.
Right. Also, you referenced it earlier. You have a really incredible blog and you write regularly. And it's not all just about coaching and it's not all just about what's in front of you at work that day. It's very much about what's going on in your mind and what you think more of us could be thinking about. I love it.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me dance with you today. It was so much fun.
My pleasure. Yeah. Before we wrap, I've got to remember to give a shout out to the Bloomstone who offered us this beautiful orchid and crystal today. I never remember the name. Celestine, something like that. Anyway, Linley, your energy is positive for me, and I will feel that for at least the rest of the day. And I will be thinking about my little things that I can do to move forward.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mariah, your sharing of this podcast and having so many extraordinary speakers on it is food for my soul as well. So thank you for that, and to the community to check it out.
Thank you. Yeah, and on that note, we hope everybody else comes back for another ABQ Accent.